You are watching the Deadfoot Diver podcast with Curt, the Deadfoot Diver.
We talk about everything diving, tech diving, and especially the benefits of diving with disabilities. Today, I am very pleased to have on one of the absolute greats in the diving industry. In fact, especially in the tech diving industry, he is the person that actually coined the term technical diving. Michael Menduno. How's it going, Michael?
It's good. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for coming on. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on here. I've been admiring your work since you started Aquacorps back in the
Mm,
90s because we actually
thank you.
lived in Key West around the same time.
Right. Amazing. In a small world. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I did not get to meet you in Key West. However, I'm going to make sure by the end of the year, hopefully that happens. So that
Yeah.
way, I actually have a copy of Aquacorps somewhere here that I'm going to get you a sign, the bent
Yeah.
issue.
Oh, great. That's a good issue. Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
that was like the most expensive magazine I had ever bought at the time, actually, which we'll get into that later. But
All right.
so
Uh,
tell me, how did you first of all get started involved in diving?
Well, I had grown up, like many people, grown up watching Jacque Cousteau and Sea Hunt with, Mike Nelson. And so always inspired. I grew up also in the water. I grew up on the Great Lakes, though it didn't occur to me at the time to start scuba diving, but I was an avid swimmer, from early on, etc. So when I came out to graduate school at Stanford in California, it just seemed like everything came together and I got certified, and it was just I remember my first breath on a regulator. I was like, I was hooked from that point. It's like, oh my God, wow. And remember in the pool there at Raleigh's Scuba Diving in Redwood City, I think it was. So way back in 1976. So it was a while ago. Anyway, and yeah, that got me into diving. Later, within a few years, I discovered that there were groups of people doing stuff that deeper and longer and decompression dives that, was, if you remember at the time, you're only supposed to go to 40 meters maximum because there's nothing to see down there below that. And you should never do a decompression, though all dives are decompression dives, etc. So I ended up getting involved with a group that was doing some of this. We can talk about that later, and that led me into what's now called technical diving. So
Which is amazing. So from there, then how did you decide to progress into getting into doing trimix diving and working
yeah,
with like Billy Deans?
yeah. So at the time, again, I was in California, and there was a group called Cordell Expeditions. It was a group of Silicon Valley engineers. They had bought a boat. They were divers, and they were doing what now would be called technical diving, but doing these bioessays, sort of citizen science, off the coast, the Cordell Banks and the big banks off Big Sur coast, and they were looking for volunteers for their expeditions. So you had to have a set of doubles and you had to pass some tests, some diving tests. So me and a friend of mine were so excited about this, so I rigged up a set of scary doubles. Oh my God, if I looking at them now, they had sort of a cheater bar, and oh my God, but I survived it. And did these dives. It was my first really decompression diving. We were not doing deep dives. These were like 50-meter dives, so not super deep, short 15-20 minute bottom times, half hour decompression. Interestingly, we did not have oxygen or any deco gas. They didn't want to use computers. I had my edge computer. We were using US Navy tables, and that was it. And it was just like magical to me. Oh my God, this is so cool. So my first instinct, I wanted to know more. So I started investigating. Well, I first wanted to write a story about it. So I went to basically every English speaking dive magazine on the planet, and no one would run it. They said, you're not supposed to do that. I'm not where we can't run a story about that. finally, I found a brave publisher, Ken Loyce from Discover Diving. And so he published my story, the Cordell expedition, with lots of caveats and warnings, don't do this at home. And through my research, I discovered that there were all these groups, like in the Northeast, the wreck divers, people diving the Andrea Doria and all this, cave country, people were doing, 2, 3, 60, 80 meter air dives, etc. And I wanted to know more. So, but there was no information about this because no one was talking about it. No one was publishing it. The groups were kind of secretive. So, they wouldn't get in trouble or get someone hurt, worse. So I decided that since there was nothing, I should start a newsletter to talk about this. And I called it Aquacorps. And that kind of got us going to this new form of diving. Yeah, that was emerging. Yeah.
Which is awesome. I mean, I remember Aquacorps when it first came out because everybody's like, "Oh, taboo stuff," right? It's all tech diving that only military guys should be doing and all that stuff.
Right. And I had been in the computer industry, so I came from that perspective, and it was clear to me what was happening is that mixed gas technology, which is sort of the essence of tech diving, right? Mixed gas technology that had been developed by the government, military divers. The commercial divers had adapted it in the 60s as oil field diving got deeper. And so now it was coming into the sport community. And I viewed it as it was kind of I called it at the time, the personal computer revolution of diving, the PC revolution of diving, because it was equivalent to a PC. These, again, government and industry had it, and now it was being scaled down for consumers to use mixed gas technology. So at the time, I called it the technical diving revolution. So and that really got it kicked off. At the time, there were no certifying agencies, there were no courses, on this area. I mean, there were certifying agencies for recreational diving. So it was all brand new in the late 80s and early 1990s. That was really the start of it. And
I
we needed
remember
something. Yeah, yeah,
I had John Chatterton on, actually. He was my first
yeah.
guest, and he was telling me that the first Trimix seminar or course he did was with you guys, and it wasn't even really a course. It was like a lecture with a photocopied manual.
Yeah. Well, because there weren't at the day, and I was in Key West with one of the true pioneers of technical diving, a guy named Captain Billy Deans. He was a avid diver. He had a dive center called Key West Diver. His best friend, John Ormsby, and him went on a Doria expedition in the mid 80s, 85, 86. And John got tangled up in the wreck and basically died. He was not diving with Billy; they were diving separately. John got tangled, couldn't get out, and died. And Billy recovered the body. So after that, and these are deep air dives. So these are again 50, 60, 70 meter dives on air. So you're narked, you're cold, etc.
Yep.
So Billy thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. And he ended up getting in touch with Dr. Bill Hamilton, who had already been working with Jacque Cousteau and some of the WKPP people. And Bill was a decompression physiologist. He had worked extensively for NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, worked for the commercial industry developing tables. And of course, to dive Trimix, you needed tables, and Bill had them. And also a lot of operational experience that he could lend to us. So that really sort of got things kicked off. At the time, the recreational agencies were, just freaking out. Their heads were exploding. It's like, what? They had worked so hard. Yeah, to keep people, nothing to see below 40 meters. Don't go down there. No decompression diving ever. You'll die. So they were freaking out. And the fear was legitimate that a lot of people would get hurt, which actually happened in the early days of tech diving, or die. And then the government would step in to regulate recreational diving, which had an exemption at the time. So they wanted nothing to do with us. And there was a pressure, we needed to call it something like, what is this? Advanced diving, high-end diving, high-tech diving. We tried different names and nothing really fit, but we needed to separate ourselves from recreational diving. So I had a number of friends who are rock climbers, right? And technical climbing is a whole field of rock climbing, and people they grade the climbs on degrees of difficulty, etc. And I just liked the technical; it just sounded right. So I came out in the magazine. I was publishing Aquacorps at the time, and we created a sister publication called Technical Diver, and then Aquacorps became the Journal of Technical Diving. So we launched this in the summer of '91, and shortly after this, Drew Richardson at Patty, he was then a vice president. He's now the CEO, of course. Penned an article in the Undersea Journal, which was one of the larger dive magazines, called "Technical Diving: Does Patty Have Its Head in the Sand?" And there was a picture of an ostrich with his head in the sand and a tech diver in doubles, and that sort of cemented the name. So forevermore, boom. And then Dick Rakowski and the International Association of Nitrox Divers team come out, and they created the International Association of Nitrox and Technical Divers, INTD. And that really, from there, it just sort of took off, and that name became the name of our community. Yeah. So,
Which is really cool. I mean, I've got a couple of points to touch on there because Dick Rutowski, first of all, he was actually my Nitrox instructor.
right.
Um, I got trained by him in 1996 at Underwater Canada in Toronto. And let me tell you, there were like 5 instructors that we dove together. And of course, technical diving was bad back then. These guys though had actually gone down to Florida and done training with like Jacque Cousteau and stuff like that. So I was lucky enough I was able to ride on their coattails a bit and dive with them up here.
Nice.
And when we actually got into a lot of heat the day that we got certified in Nitrox. It was like, you guys can't be doing this. And they like pulled us in and they were like, you guys can't be doing this. We're gonna take your instructors away, blah, blah, blah. So
It was very controversial. No, and largely out of ignorance, right? Because nobody even knew what the hell nitro. They didn't know how to spell nitrox, let alone what it was or why it might be a good thing. So the reaction, and it's legitimate. I mean, the old saying, there are old divers and bold divers, no old bold divers. I mean, it's good that we're cautious in trying new things in diving, right? Because lives are involved. But still, it was an overreaction, which was later corrected, obviously. Yeah.
oh yeah, it was a total overreaction to it. I mean, it was actually to the point of hilarious. I mean, I think what's even more hilarious now is when I started diving again in November 2023 when we were in Cozumel. And my wife and I were over looking at charter boats, and they had all the guys listed who was on the boat and what they were diving air nitrox. And on like 4 boats that were packed, there were literally like maybe 3 or 4 guys diving air. That was it. Everybody else was
Mm.
diving nitrox.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, so you had a lot of backlash from the diving community when you got into doing this stuff. I'm
Initially,
actually
yes.
gonna have there's gonna be a picture up here. They're gonna see the picture with the ostrich with the doubles
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
good.
'Cause
Good.
that
Yep.
that I remember when that first came out, and I mean, they didn't even want you at any of their shows or anything either when Nitrox first came out, did they, promoting it?
Well, there was a really interesting incident in 1991. Um, there we had the annual DEMA show, the Diving Equipment and Marketing Association, that all the industry goes to. It's an international show, as you know. So for the show coming up, and it was in those days, it was in January. Now the shows are in November. So coming up to January 1992, Dick Rakowski got a letter. In fact, I have a copy of it from Bob Gray, who's the director of DEMA, saying, "We don't want no nitrox at the show. It's going to confuse people and it's dangerous. And here's your deposit back." I mean, DEMA returning a deposit, right? Oh my gosh. So we huddled together and came up with an idea that we'd put together a workshop right before DEMA, the weekend before DEMA, in the city of DEMA, where DEMA was being held in Orlando. Get all the players together, recreational, technical, to talk about nitrox and how to move forward. And we called it the Enriched Air Nitrox Workshop. So I was one of the organizers with Dr. Bill Hamilton, Glenn Butler, and Dick Long from DUI. And so, we had Patty there, we had everybody there. And out of that meeting, Bob Gray agreed that if we did this and got everyone together, then they would allow nitrox into the show. We had a meeting. There's a report on it. I could provide it to you from the day that Bill Hamilton wrote. And then we all went to DEMA. The funny thing was, back then, of course, there were no phone apps. So you had the DEMA directory, right? And you opened it up, and the front page of the directory was, warning, nitrox may be incompatible with scuba, danger. And, people opened it up, and most people were like, what's nitrox? So they went over to either Dick Rakowski's booth or Ed Betts from American Nitrox Divers International to find out what the heck nitrox was. So it turned out to be great marketing for us all, because that was the buzz of the show, nitrox, so. And then after that was 92. By 1995, I think Patty launched their nitrox program in 1995, as did the British Sub-Aqua Club, and others already had programs. So from then on, it became pretty ubiquitous. And I think now it's true that I've heard this recently, a couple of years ago, for Patty, that was their best specialty course. So some agencies like Global Underwater Explorers, we don't even do it. The meme is compressed airs for tires. So they only dive nitrox. So when you learn to dive, you just learn to dive on nitrox, because why should you breathe air at all, except at the surface?
Really?
So, yeah. Yep.
So
they don't even do air.
QE actually only does nitrox. You don't even do any air dives on it
at all. Yeah. From the beginning.
Wow.
Mhm.
Interesting.
So, which really, when you think about it, air is nitrox. It's just a particular mix that's not very useful for a lot of the dives we do. So, yeah. Anyway.
No, that's really cool. So, I mean, you also did a lot of stuff with Dr. Bill Hamilton, you mentioned. Yeah, I was fortunate enough. I had a chance to speak to him a few times back in the 90s.
Right. Yeah.
Really super nice guy.
He was instrumental in helping technical diving really get started. He because we were viewed as the wild and crazies, right? And then we had a few wild and crazies though too in our community. But we were viewed as the wild and crazy. So by Dr. Bill saying, hey, these guys have something, they're doing something right, they're doing something meaningful, that gave us a lot of credibility with everyone else. So he really, and all his knowledge and experience that he shared with the community, it really, really helped. So interestingly, these days, pardon?
He didn't. I sort of heard though he didn't really want to get involved in a lot of the mixed gas diving. Gary Gentile sort of twisted his arm a bit with the Monitor projects.
Bill's approach was, when you came to him, he would try to talk you out of doing whatever you were going to do. And if he couldn't talk you out of it, and it didn't seem like you were bent on killing yourself, he would help you to do it right. So that was his approach, So, but you had to convince him that you weren't crazy, So, yeah, yeah. So he was, yeah, really instrumental in that. So, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So let's talk a bit about Aquacorps here for a few minutes. I mean, when you first came out with that magazine, it was, I may actually, thought I had the copy.
Got a copy there.
I thought I had it
sitting on my desk. Yeah, we'll pull a copy just for fun. Let's pull. Let's just pull one. Pull there. So this is one of them. The Survivors. Each issue is themed. This was the Survivors issue with John Cronin on the cover, who's the co-founder of Patty. So we featured him in one of our issues when Patty went nitrox. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember buying Aquacorps, the Bent magazine, the bent issue. Actually, it's funny because when I got out of diving like 3 or 4 years ago, I guess it'd be around 5 years ago now, I
Mhm.
threw out all my manuals, all my cert cards and everything like that.
It's
And
the bent issue.
yes, that one.
Yeah.
Aquacorps bent. And mine actually still has the price tag on it
Oh,
because it does, because at the time it was like to me it was staggering how much I paid for it for a magazine here. It was like $20.
20
And
bucks. Yeah.
like right?
Yeah.
Which back
They're
then,
hard to.
like, oh my God, what the heck am I buying? Right. Now, mind you,
Yeah.
it only took one issue to go and get me hooked on it where I was buying it more, because it was definitely well worth the reading. But
Thank
yeah,
you.
I remember that gave me sticker shock at the time buying that magazine, because like, oh my God, this is expensive as a lot of tech manuals were at the time.
Right. Hmm.
So when you did that, I mean, you crossed a lot of bridges with technical stuff where nobody else wanted to touch, nobody else wanted to be involved. What do you think is your greatest accomplishment from Aquacorps
Wow.
magazine, technical diving, when you started that whole thing? What are you most proud about it with the Aquacorps stuff? Is there
Hmm.
anything specific?
Good question. That's a great question. You know what? One of the things I'm proud of is that we were really able to bring the various dive communities together at our tech conferences and in the magazine. We had our community, the sport community, but we were joined by commercial divers and military divers. That's still the case today. We just had Rebreather Forum 4. So bringing the community together, number one, and number two, our focus has always been Aquacorps on safety, right? If you
Yeah.
can't do it and survive, it's just no fun, right? It takes all the fun out of it. So that was always our focus from the get-go, safety and increasing safety and performance, right? We want to go further, go deeper, but it's got to be safely, and that was always a big focus of ours. We started running incident reports in each issue. We cover, and back then you could actually report on incidents. Now, in our litigious society, no, someone dies and everybody shuts up, right, for fear of lawsuits and legal stuff.
Yeah.
But back then, I did. It was either myself or Bill Hamilton. We'd actually call everybody who was involved, figure out what happened, and in a non-judgmental way, kind of say what happened, so we could all learn from it, right, going forward, teaching ourselves how to do this. So that was the best read section of the magazine always. So I'm proud of that too. Just that, because that is the right focus: safety first, and then performance. So yep. And if you look how
Absolutely.
far we've come, it's just, from back then, I can remember thinking, God, a 300-foot dive, that's really an extraordinary exposure, 100 meters. And these days,
Not
people are pushing 300 meters, it's like, oh my God, we've really gone a long
I
way.
know. It blows me away what people are doing, like even how much rebreathers have taken off with like the Dive Talk
Yeah.
Go rebreather and stuff like
Yep.
that, and how they're becoming that much more mainstream.
Yep.
Because I mean, back in the day, it was like either you had a military connection or you managed to get one who got one somewhere clandestine, if you were
Mhm.
lucky,
Home
and it
builds,
would
they
cost
were right.
an arm and a leg. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've talked to multiple guys. I mean, Chatterton, the first time he dove a rebreather, he had like 4 or 5 catastrophic failures the first couple of times he dove with it, and he said
Yeah.
he got about 11 minutes of bottom time, and then literally took this thing home and had it pulled apart on his kitchen table trying to figure out how to make it work.
Right. Yeah.
And
They
then
really did.
his next dive with it was to the Britannic at like 400 feet or something.
Amazing, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, well, amazing.
Rich
Yeah,
Richie
I
Richie's
mean,
out there right now. Richie Kohler and his team are out there right now on the Britannica. Britannic bringing up artifacts for the museum they're opening. Right, literally today, I chatted with him. He was on over the Britannic. Yeah,
Oh, were you? Okay.
yeah,
Oh, okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, I actually just happened to message Kohler last night. I seen that he was
huh?
actually out doing
Yeah.
Botanic. So maybe put in a good word for me. Hopefully I can get him on
I
here.
will. Oh yeah,
So
sure, I will.
I would
Mm.
love to chat with Richie Kohler because I mean he's done so much stuff with John Chatterton and stuff like
Yep,
that. He's another legend in the diving industry.
absolutely.
So So with rebreathers, let's talk a bit more about rebreathers and rebreather safety and stuff like that because um like I said when I was into diving originally and stuff like that, there were a lot more risk. Obviously, there's been a lot of progression as far as like safety and improvement goes as far as the equipment goes. But there's still a fairly high death rate with it compared to scuba, right?
Yeah, no, it's rebreather safety is a work in progress. Currently, our best estimates, Frauke Tillmans, Dr. Tillmans from Dan did a very, very thorough analysis, probably the most comprehensive analysis last year, and determined that rebreather diving, your risk is 10 times that of dying of open circuit scuba. I mean, it's significant, like that. And there's not a simple fix to it. It's not just do checklists and this all go away. That's something the community, well, from the Rebreather Forum 3 in 2012, that was a big focus to do checklists. We all mostly do checklists now, but there's more to it. So it's complex. It's not, the equipment has gotten much better, but it's really about human factors. It's the human diver that's at issue. And rebreathers are a lot more complex than open circuit scuba, and that can go wrong, and a lot more failure modes. And so that's where we are. We need to really focus and work on improving rebreather safety. Yeah.
Yeah, like everybody I've talked to says basically if you're going to start diving rebreathers, then you need to dive them like regularly and
Yeah. Yeah.
consistently. And I mean,
Yeah.
even Greg Hilliard, I interviewed him last week. I was actually at his shop. I have an episode with him coming up. And he's quite the character. I've known him since NASCAR days. So
Wow.
I didn't even know he was a diver until about 6 or 7 months ago when I happened to be listening to another podcast, Nick Hogel's Off Gassing podcast. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
wait, I recognized his name. I recognized his voice. And then I'm like, oh, I know him.
Cool.
He dives, let alone all the crazy stuff that he does.
He did a
Uh,
great story for us on rebreather bailout. Some of the stuff they're working on. Yeah, they're doing some amazing work.
He is. So what do you think is going to be the biggest improvement with rebreathers that they can sort of make them more idiot proof or needs to be done so that they're more idiot proof? I
Yeah,
mean, nothing obviously idiot proof when it comes to diving or like that, but
yeah. It's tricky because there isn't just one. If we all only did this, we drop the fatality rate in half. There isn't one of those things. It's been discussed and looked at. There are incremental changes coming. I mean, a hardware change that's coming. People are moving now finally into solid state oxygen sensors, much more reliable. Poseidon, of course, has had these for a while, but they were the only vendor. Now, through Oxygen Scientific, Halcyon's coming out with solid state sensors. I think others will as well. So, and obviously, our oxygen, knowing what your oxygen level is critical in rebreather diving. And so this will make it a little more reliable, but it's not going to solve the problem. We need more discussion as a community and more looking at this, and et cetera. I mean, it impacts. It's a lot of areas. It's equipment. It's training. It's human factors. It's all these. So
yeah,
work
I
to be done. Yeah.
I I can see that. I mean, I've been shocked just even up here when I've gone diving up here some days and I pull up to a dive site and there's like 5 or 6 guys with rebreathers. And it's like,
Yeah.
holy smokes. I mean, back in the day, I actually never physically was able to put my hands on a rebreather until last winter.
Ah, uh-huh.
Yeah, when I first got back into diving again, they have one at the one shop I went to up here, and
Nice.
he had one. So I got to see it, and it's like, holy smokes! I was like blown away that I actually was getting. They'd come to that point where you'd see them in a shop.
Right. Some of the innovations in rebreathers too have come out of adaptive diving. Mike Young at KISS developed the first Sidewinder, which was the first side mount rebreather that, and militaries don't have side mounted rebreathers, just our community. And he developed it for a wounded warrior. I met up with him. We were at Peacock Springs and met up with him when they were testing out the demo unit, trial unit, beta unit for the original KISS Sidewinder. So yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. I mean, that's another thing that has blown me away is how much of the sort of technical stuff has gotten into the recreational spectrum as far as like even just side mount diving, for instance. Never in a million years did I ever think I would do
I'm not.
side mount diving because in fact, when I first started diving again last year, this guy I got a bunch of my equipment off of. His name's Gordon. He's been getting out of tech diving, so he's been selling it all off to me.
Mhm. Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's worked out well. He's actually a friend of Lamar Hires.
Ah,
So,
nice.
yeah, he lives like 20 minutes from my house. Really cool guy. But he was getting out of all his stuff, and the first day I went over to see him, he had actually said to me, he said, with your legs, maybe you should think about doing side mount diving. And I'm like, side mount? I said, I'm not doing no cave diving. That's strictly for cave diving, blah, blah.
Right.
And blew it off. And here I am less than a year later, and I'm gonna be side mount diving next week.
Yeah, that's great. Yep.
So
Yeah, that's an
stuff
area that's in both rec and tech. Yes, for sure.
yeah, like stuff like that. And even just the amount of like never in a million years did I ever thought I'd see Patty offering rebreather courses. Ever.
Mm.
Or some of the other technical courses they offer for that
Yeah.
matter. So what do you think as far as do you think that it has been sort of pushed into the mainstream too much to a certain extent and that there's people
Rebreathers. Yeah.
no yeah with rebreathers and stuff, how
Yeah.
do you think that it's being pushed into the mainstream more for
Yeah. There was a movement actually after Rebreather Forum. There have been 4 Rebreather forums. These are industry symposiums to kind of sort out what we're doing and move forward. The third one was in 2012. And a big focus then was to bring, in fact, Patty was largely behind this, to create type R rebreathers. These would be simplified rebreathers that could be used by recreational diving. And there was a thrust for this. Poseidon was also involved. But what's really happened is the recreational community never really has picked up rebreathers. And there are some reasons for that. I mean, first of all, even among tech divers, even though they're the dominant platform, if you're going to go deep or long, you need a rebreather. Most tech divers do not have rebreathers. We figure it might be 10 to 15% of tech divers actually own rebreathers. But the recreational community, just even though it was offered to them, yeah, expensive and a lot of work, you're going to go do a rebreather dive. So you're going to spend at least a half hour building your unit and all that. Then you're going to go do the dive. And then you come back and spend another half hour, an hour cleaning it and disinfecting it and taking it apart. And I think it's just too much work for most recreational. It's just never really caught on. I mean, some people use it, but very, very few. There's some new units that are simpler semi-closed rebreathers. like the Mari's Horizon. And so I think those are getting some purchase among recreational divers. But, again, it takes a certain kind of person who's really into the diving and into the equipment to do it. It's not for, tourist diving. Like, I'm on vacation and I just want to go out and dive. You don't need a rebreather for that. It's just way too much work. So it's sort
Oh
of
yeah.
sorted itself out. But the fatality rate is not just because new inexperienced people are coming in and dying. It's experienced people as well. I mean, there's not one group that you can identify or one, and that's kind of the complex. That's the challenge of it, right? It's complex. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
that
totally get
happened with mixed gas diving too. When we started mixed gas diving in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a huge number of fatalities. I mean, I probably know 50 people that had died. And it's from bad gas mixes, right? People breathed a rich mix at too deep of a depth and toxed and drowned. And that happened a lot back in the day. And we kind of got through that, sorted it out, good gas switch procedures, etc. Mixing, analyzing, you shouldn't breathe anything that you haven't analyzed, etc. So we've improved on that. But now it's rebreather technology is, again, high fatality rates. So I'm thinking over time that it's going to come down as we improve our methods and protocols and everything else. Yeah. So
Yeah, hopefully it does. I mean, I am at some point later on this year gonna actually try a rebreather, which I didn't think
nice.
I would.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Matt Manzuk from Dan's is actually gonna do we're gonna do a pool session on it for the
Oh,
podcast.
great. You
He's
should. Yeah.
he's convinced I'm gonna be hooked on it immediately because he knows that there's some deep dives I want to do. My wife is totally anti rebreather.
Yeah.
um I have several other friends who their wives are anti rebreather too. However, in their cases, it's been mostly because of the cost that the divorce would be.
Well, you're
That
you're
went
gonna
along with
spend, yeah, 10 to $20,000 for the unit and training. And then the divorce is on cost is on top of that. So it's I mean, there's something certainly for deep and long rebreathers can't be beat, right? Efficient, near optimal decompression, etc. But just the experience of quietness, you can hear your breath. It's truly the silent world, Jacque Cousteau's silent world. Um, so the experience, that part of the experience is great. But to get that and to get all the advantages, there's a lot of work and money involved, basically. So if you're willing to put in the time and the money, then you're good. And as you pointed out, you have to stay current. If you're only going to go diving every couple months, pick it up, do some dives, and go back to work. Rebreathers aren't for you. You need to be doing them continually to build in the muscle memory and just the sense of it. Open circuit is a lot more forgiving in that way, right?
Yeah, that is definitely true when it comes to open circuit versus rebreather. And I mean, let's face it, you can still die using open circuit as well. So
Yep.
I actually have it's funny because I've been there's several schooners up here in Lake Huron that they found in the last couple of years that are all intact, mass sticking up. They're all a bunch of them are 150 to 180, somewhere around
Wow.
that,
Yeah.
220. Some of them
Feet.
enough
Imperial in feet. Yeah.
yeah, which would gladly suffice me. But
Yeah.
I've always wanted to see an intact schooner. That's the thing. I want to see an intact
Yeah.
schooner with mass sticking up.
Yeah.
And I mean, the cost of doing some of those dives, like I had Hilliard and he calculated it for me what my gas price would be. And one dive for 20 minutes on Trimix, not including my certifications and all that other stuff. 1 20-minute bottom time on Trimix for this one dive at I think it was 180, the one we looked at. And it was going to cost me $600 by the time I figured my gas and my charter boat. And that didn't
Right.
include anything else.
Right. Yeah.
you know, and it's like, and then I had another, well, actually one of my other friends, he has his rebreather and he did his open circuit trimix before. And he
Mm.
was telling me he did it in Bon Air and he had to pay for his and his instructor's
Doctor's
gas
gas.
for 4 dives, and it was $1,500 US. So,
Yeah.
which, let's see here, just to tell you how bad our exchange rate is. Uh, let's see. So, 2,088 Canadian. That would
Wow.
cost
Yep.
me for
Yep.
4 dives. I cannot justify that.
It's interesting. Both the military and commercial divers, as soon as they got into helium, and this was a long time ago, was that became the big expense, and so everybody went to reclaim systems, right, on commercial diving to reclaim the helium. Open circuit scuba is not reclaimed, right? We're just blowing all that helium,
Oh yeah.
but that's why people are going to rebreathers, because it's a much more efficient, times 10 at least,
You're
efficient
basically
use of gas.
burning $100 bills a
Right,
second.
right. Yep,
It's
yep.
like,
So
it's the equivalent of racing a NASCAR. You're burning $100 bills.
yeah, yeah. So, and helium prices aren't. The market is very fragile. I mean, prices aren't. There's not a shortage currently, but prices are not going to go down. I mean, there's continual demand for helium, mostly in manufacturing. It's used for manufacturing chips and all that, and medical. Those are the two, and space. Those are the three big uses. Diving is only breathing applications is only about 4% of global helium use. So
Really? Only
yeah, so a small
4%
percent,
being used.
and most of that is commercial and military and hyperbaric chambers, right? Not tech divers.
Huh. I did not realize it was that small. I would have thought that it would have
Yeah.
been a bit more use for other
Well,
stuff, but
well, now realize this year the global demand for helium last year, 2024, was estimated to be 6.4 billion cubic feet. So 4%, 4 billion. So 4% of that is our diving contribution. Yeah, which is not a lot. Yeah,
no, definitely not.
240 million cubic feet, something like that. Yeah.
So when it comes to all this stuff with rebreathers and the mixed gas diving and all this stuff, what do you, if you've got a new diver who wants to get into doing technical diving and getting into rebreathers, and let's say he's just coming out from his open water
Mm.
class and decides, okay, you know what, I want to do this. What are the best things that you could do that tell this person from all your years of experience, the
Ah,
best piece of advice?
yeah, do a lot of diving. Right? It's not just learning, it's experience. It's learning, training, and experience. You need the experience. You can't really become a tech diver by saying, hey, great, I'm just going to take all these classes for the next 3 months and voila, zero to hero. Doesn't work. You need, and some agencies reflect that, like in Global Underwater Explorers, you take a Tech 1 class, then you need to do at least 25 dives at that level before you can do your next class. I mean, a lot of agencies have similar things. And it's just essential. I mean, you want to get your nitrox training, you want to get your decompression training. Those are, and then go on to try mixed gas technology, try mixed diving. So there's definitely a sequence of courses you can take, but you need the experience with it. Really important. That's how we learn, right? By doing.
And what would be the biggest piece of advice you could give somebody? Because let's face it, not all instructors are equal. The best piece of advice when they're looking for a good technical instructor.
I would say look for someone who is doing the dives they're teaching, you know, as opposed to someone who's just teaching and not doing the dives. Um, Certainly do your homework and research. If you have someone in mind, talk to other students, other instructors, get recommendations. Um, but there are a lot of really good instructors out there for sure. Um, and someone who's compatible with your style of learning. I mean, over the years, we've all had lots of instructors. You have the in your face, you screwed up, don't do that ever. That kind. Or the more I that style does not work. The military sort of shouting in your face style doesn't work well with me for learning. But then people there are other sorts of styles of instructors, but yeah. So, but that's my main advice. Get someone who's doing the kinds of dives you want to do, because these days, back in the early days, there was recreational diving and technical diving, and never the two shall meet. I mean, it was just black and white. But now there's really just a continuum. It's like the question is like, what do you want to do? How deep do you want to go? How long do you want to, how far do you want to go? And based on that, well, okay, here's the equipment you need, here's the training you need, and here's the experience you need. It's just sort of wide open, right? From, again, doing a holiday dive a couple times a year to, being a dedicated hardcore cave diver pushing, 200 meters, whatever. So it's just a continuum. Yeah.
Now
So
you
don't be in a
mentioned
hurry. I would say don't be in a hurry either. Enjoy the process. That's the important part.
a lot of people do though. They rush to get through certs and go and decide they want to like go from open water to instructor in a matter of like months.
Right. Yeah, well, people get the bug, as we have gotten, right? You get infected, and it's like, oh my God,
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
when I used to race motocross, we always used to like joke about being a bad drug as far as cost goes, right? Well,
Right.
I don't know because it's about the equivalent in diving, depending on what you want to do with it too. So
It's an expensive addiction. Yes. Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it
Hmm.
actually can be. So
Yeah.
um but yeah, that's very cool. By the way, I know that you and I were talking, and that in the last couple of weeks since I got back from the Bahamas. I don't know if I told you or not,
Mhm.
but I did get bit by a shark.
That was that. Oh God! Wow. You're rare. You're an extraordinary individual. That doesn't happen to many people. Most people do not ever have that opportunity.
I know. It's like it's it was so funny because
Glad you're okay.
I knew I'd been bit. I've been wearing a 7 mil suit, fortunately, because I'm cold. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna wear a 7 mil because it's still cooler down there. And it was during the feed, and yeah, it hit
Oop.
me.
Sorry about that.
There we go.
I had don't disturb on my phone, and it must have run out, and I got a phone call, and that notified me.
Ah,
Sorry, it's
all
back
right. So
on.
let's start that part over again then.
Yes.
So I know, Michael, I know that we had been talking actually before I went to the Bahamas a couple of weeks ago, and I actually got bit by a reef shark on the feed.
Oh my God. Wow. Wow. You're one of the lucky few.
I know. And it was actually in my bad leg, my dead foot.
Oh wow.
This is the funnier part. And my one amputee buddy says, "What?" He says, "Well," he says, "Why?" He says, "You're really lucky you didn't lose your foot." And I said, "I don't know. Am I really lucky?" I said, "Even the sharks don't want the damn thing."
Oh God.
Because I
Ah,
said, for years that was a big running joke, especially when I had the metal in my foot, right? That was broken because I wanted to get rid of my leg so bad. It was that much pain. And so yeah, everybody thought it was first of all hilarious that it got me in the dead leg of all places. And I basically I been on the sand, I'm sure I wouldn't have gotten bit at all. But
right.
where they had us was we were on the outside of a ship, rail, and we're sort of kneeling on the deck, sort of outside the rail, so our feet were like hanging off the back, like over the edge, and that leg drops on me.
All right.
So I'm pretty sure that that's the only reason I got nipped, and because they were in a frenzy. Because I mean, we did other dives, and I mean, I had bigger reef sharks than that. I had like 8-10 foot ones coming within a few feet of me, and they didn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Wow.
You're just diving. So yeah, so I got a cool thing to brag about now. I can say I actually got bit by a shark. I actually sent a message to Andre Burrell from Shark Stop Suits and said, I want to interview you on my podcast now, right? I just happened to get bit a week ago.
Nice. Nice.
The funnier part was, as you and I have discussed, my wife actually used to live in the Bahamas and did an extensive amount of diving down in the Bahamas. So I did not tell her I had been bit until I got back. In fact, even on the boat, one of the crew guys, actually, when I was getting out of the water, he noticed it because I was bleeding a bit. And he actually he said, oh my God, you got bit. Yeah, I'm okay. I'll be fine. And I'm thinking to myself, good thing it was a 7 mil, not a 3.
Right.
Oh yeah, it would have been. Yeah, I would have had a mess on my hand had it been a 3 mil suit. But so I didn't bother to tell my wife. I figured, okay, no harm, no foul. Why stress her out when she can't talk to me all the time necessarily when I'm on this trip, right? So I got back, didn't say a word, and she actually caught me getting out of the shower, and she actually busts out laughing, and she's like, okay, so when were you gonna tell me about the shark bite?
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, that.
Oh, funny.
So yeah, so that was an interesting thing. But so let's talk a bit about InDepth magazine, your Aquacorps 2.0. How did you decide to get into doing that?
Yes, well, I had gone away from diving for a while, and I got back involved in around 2010 or 11. Kind of came back in, old story there. And I started writing again. I've been a writer since I started. Actually, I started my writing career in diving, and then moved into business and technology writing. And so coming back around, I was just amazed by what is happening in the tech diving community. It had grown so much as we had talked about, and I wanted to do something. And I started talking to an old friend of mine, Jared Jablonski, who's the founder of GUE, Global Underwater Explorers. We talked about it, about having a magazine like Aquacorps, a community magazine that reports on our community and what we're doing and all that. Putting something like that together. So shortly before COVID, in the winter, fall of 2018, we thought, let's do it. Just seemed like the timing was right. And so we launched InDepth December of 2018. And it's just, kind of taken off since. It's continued to grow. Originally, we were on the GUE website. I think that sort of inhibited our growth somewhat. But then we moved to our own URL, indepthmag.com. And again, I think we've demonstrated that it's GUE has its own member magazine called Quest for members, but InDepth is, again, really for the community, by the community, etc., hosted by GUE, which I'm grateful for. So yeah, and we're having fun with it. Recently, I was joined by Stratus Koss and Natalia Koss, and they're helping with both content. Stratus is a content creator. People probably know him from his books, Close Calls and the cave diving book. But he's also a marketing and sales guy. So he's helping us with that and social media. Natalia is helping with social media. So we've really grown. We were just starting to really take off. So I'm excited about that. We're global. About 40% of our readers are US, and then 60% rest of the world, large and big in Europe, of course. And we're starting to grow more in the Asia Pacific area. That's kind of harder area for everyone to reach. So we're trying to do more there and more coverage. So really excited about it. And we have an extraordinary community of people doing
Oh
just amazing things, and we want to cover it and report on it. And really, I think of InDepth as sort of the knowledge base of technical diving, right? Written by the people doing it and the experts for the people doing it and the experts. I want the Jared Jablonskis and you and the Gary Gentiles. Those are the people I want to read this. So yeah.
yeah, which is amazing. I mean, I'm impressed every single article I read with who
Ah,
you've got
thank
writing
you.
articles for you. It's like the who of diving. So
We have a lot of who's who, yes, for sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I see you have one in there from Michael Thomas actually this
Yes, he's
time.
he's written a number of pieces for us. He's great. I mean, one of our pioneers and veterans, right? British caving. Of
I'm
course, he
hoping to
goes all
get
over.
him on next week, in the next week or so. I'm hoping to do an interview with him, depending on his cave schedule, because he's got a
Mm,
pretty busy cave schedule right now. But I had his son Robert on,
yep.
uh,
Right. I know. Yeah.
youngest cave diver in Britain. He was actually telling me that his dad actually made him do 50 dives per certification before he could go on to another
Good.
dive, which I
Yeah.
think is awesome.
Yeah. Michael has a piece in this issue called "What Not to Die For," and it's an attitude piece. It's like, slow down, fella, young fella. Here's what you need to do. We're talking about all the issues we were talking about. Not being in a hurry, but taking each step as it comes. So yeah.
I actually was just I just started to pull that open actually before we
Ah,
got on. 'Cause I was taking away this issue. I was like, Michael Thomas. Oh, this looks good.
yeah, it is. So yeah.
So you guys are actually going to be doing a issue coming up on adaptive tech diving, correct?
Yeah. Uh, it's kind of in the works. It'll have multiple stories in it, but yes, that's certainly a technical area. I mean, adaptive diving is technical diving in a sense, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's a little more than holiday diving. So yeah, so it's definitely something we want to cover more of. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait to see that for sure, especially you hear from some of the other technical divers that adaptive technical divers that you guys
Mhm.
that you're going to be interviewing on that for me, because for me as an adaptive person, it's especially when it comes to looking at how everybody's gear is, because we all
Right.
have to modify our gear differently.
Right.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with that as much, it's like every time I adjust or add a new piece of gear, it basically takes me 2 or 3 dives before I get used to it, and I have to monkey
Mhm.
around with stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, good example. I just went to a full backplate and wing.
Huh.
That I
Yep.
Due to the weather up here, as you know, we had that horrendous winter.
Right.
I did not get to test until I went to the Bahamas. It's like, I even had a pool session available to me 2 days before I left, and wouldn't you know it, we got another snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
I kid you not. I had 2 pool sessions in 3 days I coulda went to, and both times it was snowed out that time, but
Wow.
it was nuts. I couldn't get near any water for the last since I had broken my thumbs in November.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, getting back to the adaptive stuff, that's what I really enjoy, and I'm looking forward to seeing, especially in your issue of that, is just seeing how guys modify their equipment,
Hmm.
what they have to deal with their different types of disabilities. Because not only that, there's stuff that they have in their setup that I may decide to choose for mine, or especially I'm going to be recertifying as an instructor and working with
Hmm.
adaptive guys. So, I
Yep.
definitely want to do that,
Yep.
because I'm finding every time I go and I change something, I automatically, I've got like 3 or 4 instructor guys that I'll go and I'll say, okay, here's what I got to do because of this. Do you see any problem with this? Do you have any suggestion on this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's all uncharted territory.
yeah, it's all customized. Whereas, say, side mount, people have, it's pretty. It's a little variation amongst people, but very much the same. People have figured it out. But adaptive diving, every individual's got their own needs, right? So it's, yeah,
Yep.
some work involved. Yeah.
Which is awesome. So what else do you guys have coming up in depth?
Ah, things coming up. Well, we'll continue to have rebreather. Certainly, rebreather coverage is very important. People like that, and it's some of the most well-read stuff. Um, the talks, we're continuing our roundtable interview series. This month we have instructors. We have two talks coming up. One on medical, some of the top diving docs, and talking about some issues relevant to tech divers. And then we're also doing a talks on Mexico. They're building the Mayan train through the jungle and breaking cave, basically. So we're going to have a pretty detailed
Mm,
report on that coming up. Um, yeah. So some of the
Breaking
things.
cage.
Well, they're driving these big pillars down through the ground through the cave to support the train above it. So, and they're just clearing jungle. So they're basically the hotels didn't want the train along the road. They wanted to put it in the jungle that no one uses except all the cave divers. So,
Uh, and all
so we're
the
looking,
animals and everything
and the
else.
animals, yeah, and that's the drinking water for the whole Yucatan. So it's now got pillars and different things poking through it. So we're going to get an update. We had a report on it a couple of years ago, but we're looking for an update. So, yep. So we'll
And
continue to cover things and locations and yeah, like that. So yeah, and rebreather safety. That's safety issues are very important. So we'll continue to cover that as well. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, which is really good how much you guys cover the safety aspect of it, because that's the most important thing with tech diving
yeah.
that a lot of
Well,
people don't realize.
diving in general. If you
Yeah.
don't come back, it's not really very fun for anyone. Yeah. So
No, I mean, I remember Chatterton actually in his interview telling me that, at one point he was on a first name basis with this Suffolk County coroner,
yeah, yeah,
which I mean,
yeah.
it was humorous in the way that he portrayed it now looking back on it several years
Right.
later. But
Got a lot of
yeah,
humors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's
Yeah.
face it, you have to have a certain amount of dark humor to be able to deal with that type of stuff on a regular basis. I mean, so
Yes.
you said you've had 50 people that you've known died on rebreathers.
Yeah, at least we did a thing a number of years ago at the Tech Dive USA show. We had a photo exhibit of the day, and I put up a big plaque, blank with pencil, and I invited people to, list people who, fellow divers who have deceased. And we blew out 60 names right within 2 days. It was at a DEMA show, actually. Yeah, it's
Wow.
just, and that's pretty unique to our community. So really where we've gotten has been paid for in blood and sweat and tears, right? I mean, to get to where we are. So it's safety is really important. Yeah.
I don't think there's a single person I know who's been involved in the diving industry that hasn't been sheltered away from tech diving stuff, that doesn't know somebody who
Huh.
hasn't died on a
Yeah.
rebreather, or
Yeah.
knows of somebody or his buddy's friend or something that's died on a rebreather.
We're averaging 20 to 30 deaths a month on rebreathers.
A month.
Yeah.
It's that high.
I'm sorry, a year. Sorry, month. It's not, no, it's a year.
A
Sorry.
month. I was
Uh,
like, wait a second.
yeah,
How's all
no,
this
no,
stuff
no, no, no,
hiding
no.
in the
Yeah,
media?
no, sorry. A year, but that represents about 10% of scuba deaths. 10% of scuba deaths. And the number of rebreathers compared to the number of scuba sets,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like 0.001%. So yeah, it's significant and we need to improve it. Yeah.
Yeah. definitely. I mean, well, thanks to organizations like you guys and GUE and all these other training organizations who are coming up
Divers
with better
Alert
stuff.
Network. Yeah,
Yes, Divers
they've been
Alert
really
Network,
instrumental.
all the stuff that they're doing. Actually, I had Dan Orr on.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
damn.
yep, from Divers Alert Network, and actually, I've got Dr. Doug coming on. I'm gonna
Oh
interview Dr.
great,
Doug next week.
good. He's
So,
on our medical the roundtable interviews. He's one of our diving docs on that. So yeah, he's really very knowledgeable. Yeah,
I'm
cool.
very interested in talking about that, especially a heart cardiologist who is a one badass tech diver as well.
Yeah, he's a rebreather instructor. Yeah,
I know. He's teaching Rebreather Trimix as we speak.
nice. Yep.
He's doing a course today.
Ah, cool.
So
Yep.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to that as well. And what about you also had another in your previous issue about the shortage on hyperbaric chambers, which
It's
I
a real
want to touch
yeah.
on.
It's a real issue in the States. Many chambers, just treating divers, you have to be open, you have to have doctors on call, and who knows when someone's going to get bent. Will they show up in your chamber at 10 at night, in the so a lot of chambers have opted just for the economics to treat wound care victims and other uses for hyperbarics and not treat divers. So if you get bent in Florida, they may ship you to Georgia to get treated, for example. We have a story about this. And as we know, time is of the essence with getting bent, right?
Oh yeah.
Commercial divers have chamber on board. Someone gets bent, boom, they're in the chamber instantly, and there's no consequence. They can come back out, go back to work, etc. But delaying treatment is bad. So not having local chambers nearby ready to treat divers is a really problem. So we need to keep calling attention to it. And again, it's an economic decision. Hopefully, maybe even states going to get involved. Think of state like Florida. They have a bazillion divers. They get lots of
Oh
money
yeah.
from diving. But we should have chambers there that are open for divers, so they could maybe do something to mandate that or something. So it is a growing problem that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
Well, do you want to hear my madness as far as hyperbaric chambers go up here?
Yeah.
As you know, I dive up in Tobermory, right? There's a
Right.
chamber right in Tobermory. That's been the best thing about diving in Tobermory since I started back in the 90s was, okay, at least there was a chamber there if you got bent.
Right.
Well, because of our lovely government of Ontario cutbacks with the medical system, they closed the medical center up in Tobermory. Dr. Harper is still there at the chamber. He's still at the chamber center and stuff like that. However, if you have a diving accident in Tobermory, they have to drive you 40 minutes south to Wyerton to be evaluated, and then 40 minutes back while Dr. Harper is literally standing on the front desk watching the ambulance go both ways.
Wow. Right.
Which just to me is like absolutely insane.
Yep. No, it's a serious issue.
Not to mention the fact in the summer, good luck doing that drive in 40 minutes with the traffic. Like I would be afraid for a diver who is stuck in that ambulance and had to go down to Wyerton and back just because of that and with the traffic involved and stuff like that.
And that amount of time, again, at least a couple hours those are the golden time that you need treatment. So it's not a good situation.
You have to drive past the chamber to go out of Tobermory. You cannot avoid it. It's one road in, one road out.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully. And I've been hearing that a lot more. Actually, I've got another hyperbaric doctor. I'm hopefully going to have a couple more on that. I specifically want to talk about that because a lot of these poor guys can't even retire.
Right. I would be very interested if in additional stories like our story that was written by Ashley Stewart was focused mostly on the US. I don't think they have the same problem in Europe, but if you have it in Canada, I'd love to talk about that. Maybe one of your sources could write a story for us, or you could, about what's happening in
Yeah,
Canada
yeah.
with regards to hyperbarics. Yeah. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, that would
anyway,
definitely
yeah.
be interesting. Well, Michael, thank you very much for joining us today. I am so pleased that you were able to come on and talk to us about all your amazing things in the world of tech diving. And remember, everybody, I'll have Michael's links all down in the description there. And remember to grab an adventure and live, and like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Curtis. Really enjoyed this. Thank